There's no sound.
It's me. I had it on mute.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to Eureka Springs again.
Thank you.
It's so nice to meet you. I can't even begin to tell
Hi.
you how happy I am to meet you. We're broadcasting live from my friend Angela Roberts' studio, and hence all the lovely gear behind me. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for reaching out to me. I'm excited.
Yeah, is Scott going to join us also?
He may, but he's dealing with some car trouble, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay, well, I'm sure you guys have discussed, what you're going to do about the story. Anyway, I just love the story on how the Princess of the Lake came to be. And I have, I passive aggressively asked uh, our daughter to write how how when they first saw you. And so I'd like to just read her statement to you and then turn it on to you to finish the story, if that's okay. Okay. So
Okay,
today,
yeah.
okay, today we're meeting Katie Crawford, the Princess of the Lake. So this is Allison's recollection. Finding the right model for a project can be hard. I remember how much the searching frustrated my father at times. I also remember him telling me that sometimes the universe smiles on you and it's like magic. Like sometimes when you're looking for what you're looking for finds you before you even know you're looking for it. That is the origin of this painting. My dad and I were in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, poking around in an antique store, just having a nice day minding our own business. We noticed a couple come into the shop and start browsing near us. Nothing too much stood out about them. I did notice that the woman in the couple had a cute short pixie cut haircut. I had been considering cutting my hair the same way, so it had caught my eye. While I mused over her hair, she turned and I saw her face. And I thought to myself, wow, she's really beautiful. There's something unique about her, but what is it? I think my dad looked up and caught that too. But we didn't say anything to each other and continued to do our own browsing. Then it happened. She reached out for the chainmail headdress and put it on. I guess we had both been drawn to her and had been subconsciously taking little peeks at her because we both saw it. Without a word of looking at each other, we both threw out our elbows and tried to nudge one another while we nodded with our heads in her direction. We were both mesmerized. She was stunning. It was like the chainmail was hers, always had been, always will be. I was very much into medieval history at the time and felt like I was looking at Joan of Arc or something. I couldn't explain what was happening, but something was definitely happening. I like to think we managed not to expose our gawking, but maybe not, because before we knew it, she had taken the chainmail headdress off and they were walking out the door. For the first time since we had started watching her, I turned and looked at my father. He was almost in a trance, his eyes looking into another dimension. I said, Dad. I already knew, though, his mind was made up. He was going to paint her from memory if he had to. With his disability, there's no way he was going to be able to catch up with them. And now I know he didn't want to frighten them by yelling down a busy street. But I could help. He read it in my face instantly that I understood, that I had seen the same thing he saw. And then I realized the universe had just smiled. He smiled and said, Go get her if you can. I booked it as fast as I could out the shop and down the street, racing up to catch up with who would become the Princess of the Lake. And now I'll let Katie tell her side of the story.
Well, I read that when you sent it to me a couple weeks ago, and it really jogged my memory because at the time that my now husband and I arrived in Eureka Springs, we were just young traveling kids. Like we lived in our van, we had a little rescue dog, and we randomly came to Eureka Springs. Just it was on our path, and we stopped. We often would stop when there was caverns or swimming spots or hot springs. So Eureka Springs, the name and the natural features around it drew us in. We just popped in and it was like we experienced so much synchronicity in that town. We immediately made friends, got sort of scooped up and adopted by a local guy and his girlfriend who were older than us and had a cool house in town and were interested in us and just kind of lavished us with their local sort of accommodations and interest. And so we ended up like spending time there that we had never expected to do. And we had such a great time in Eureka Springs. And my memory of that time is pretty foggy because we spent so much time traveling and having these types of encounters all over the country. So Eureka Springs has always stood out to me though, because we really did just have like such a joyful ride there. And meeting James Yale was definitely part of that. And when I read Allison's story, I was able to recall the meeting which happened in antique shop, which I had forgotten. But I remembered it because that headdress, first of all, we were broke. We went into an antique shop just to look around. Like we were young crafting people. We didn't have money to spend in an antique shop. We were just poking around and checking out the town. And the first thing I saw in there was that headdress. And at the time, I made a lot of jewelry and I made chainmail. And so, of course, I was intrigued by that. And it was quite a fantastic piece. It was like a full head hood with the piece down here. It was a huge work, whoever made it. And so it was fun to put on. And it was right in line with sort of our interests and what we had been fiddling with in our lives at that time. So it makes sense that I would have quickly taken it off and we would have made our departure because we didn't have any pocket money to spend in a place like that. And I vaguely recall being approached by James's daughter, but and I can't really remember exactly like how we arranged the next meeting. But I'm an artist, and at that time I was really young and unformed and eager to meet people who had real talent and commitment to their craft. And James was obviously a very talented painter and very skilled guy who had at that time, by the time I met him, already had decades of paintings in his studio. So I was thrilled to go and see his studio, and I think it probably helped a lot that his daughter was there to introduce us, to make that encounter with a stranger more comfortable. And James was like so warm and sweet, just such a nice character. And I mean, my time knowing him in person was so short, actually. I think we did one studio visit and saw sort of what his work looked like and talked about his process and his paintings. And he shared a lot. And then we set up a time to meet at a location for that painting, and he knew where he wanted to meet us. And then the next meeting was there, and I think the photo shoot was just like, a handful of minutes. It didn't take long, and then we kept in touch so that he could show me the painting later. And it wasn't until Facebook came around, and even probably much later after it first appeared, that we connected and were able to sort of pick up our little pen pal relationship later in life. And I was thrilled to be able to continue seeing his work and what he was up to.
You know, I'm just learning more about James the artist. And I just did an interview last week over at the Fay Jones School of Art and of Architecture and Design. And I'm just the regular person on the block, that goes to the gallery and a painting gets about 3 seconds of your time. And there's so much I miss. And one of the things is that I'm starting to understand his composition and I'm starting to understand his vision as I interview you all. And did he ask you, I mean, is there any instruction he gave you when you were, posing for that?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty casual. I think like he definitely had an idea that was clear. So he wanted me in the water, and it was quite an early morning, and he had borrowed the headdress from the shop, and he really made it very easy, which I think is a skill in itself that one acquires after a lot of experience, how to interact with a model and sort of capture the information that he needs technically for his paintings, which were super technical paintings, very well thought out. And I kind of picked that up. I mean, I knew so little back then about the process of painting. I had never done a painting. I was in my sketchbooks at that time. But now, looking back, knowing what I know now, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, and you have to be pretty exacting, or you end up kind of not able to achieve what you set out to do. So I get the feeling now, thinking back, that he really knew what he was about. He knew exactly what he wanted to get done, and he knew that this was the day to get it done so that he would have the like reference material that he would need for
Right.
however weeks or months it would take him to do his painting. And yeah, he was so approachable, such an approachable guy. Did Made me feel very like comfortable, and I wasn't like necessarily an experienced model. And but I was interested in being the subject of a painting for sure, and I liked his work, and my husband was there, and we all really like appreciated each other, and he made it very simple and straightforward, and he just kind of knew what he wanted to do, and he got it done. And I remember we combed the beach a little bit and chatted, but it wasn't like he was experimenting, or it wasn't a really elaborate journey. He kind of had something in mind, I think.
Right. I really am experience Nancy my this is my Nancy Drew, heart project, that I am talking to people, and each day something uncovers, and I there's a lot. I'm not going to take up too much of your time about that, but one of the things that came out, I found an article on James in this box. I'm starting to go through, some of his archives, and there was this great article by this journalist named Donise Woodside, and um, she was telling me that she has two of his prints. One is of you that her daughters gave to her, and the other is the fallen angel of War and Peace. I didn't notice this. I've been looking at, I don't know where the painting is, so that's where this is going after this interview. Maybe someone who actually owns that painting will, tell us, say hello, here we are, and tell us how the painting makes them feel after all these years, because we're trying to add to his catalog. But Donise said, she looks at that
Sure.
painting and how those two have to be next to each other of War and Peace, because you're coming out with this dagger. But I don't know if you did this on purpose or he asked you to, or he did this from his imagination. You're holding this cattail in a peace sign. Did you know you're doing that, or did he do that?
Oh yeah. He probably did pose my hands. One thing about posing hands is that there is like this two finger thing that happens in portraiture. It's just like an elegance thing. But and so I don't necessarily think that he would have had a peace sign specifically in mind. But I think that things happen that have their own meaning that develops, in a moment. And I think I think this two finger, especially I have little stubby short fingers, is helpful to like elongate the hand and make it more sort of beautiful and elegant. So I think just his skill and knowledge of art and the form probably informed that. But
Right.
I think it's cool that
Yeah,
so is that.
I love it. And I'm a big dummy. I'm just now, like, wow, there it is. So one of the things about your photo shoot that I do know that he's told me about is that you're in. the lake, and he has you draped in, he usually uses gauzy kind of things, and some bass boat, is going by and sees this woman out in the thing, and they're like getting ready to wreck in front of you, and it swoops your robe off into the lake. That's pretty
Nice.
funny.
Well, I was a little bit of a nudist back then. I might as well say like I wasn't afraid to like skinny dip or be a little wild. We were little earth babies and we would travel all around and pretty much strip off and jump into any swimming hole we could find. So that is just a cute description. I think definitely we were up early morning and the only other people that were out there were fishermen. And for sure they were like probably coming a little closer to
Well,
see.
I would high five you right now because I lived in Idaho, and we'd go to the swimming hole every year on my birthday. So I didn't even have a swimsuit. So I high five you if
Yeah,
I high five, which I don't. Ugh. So anyway.
we were just doing our own thing and we were not very shy or inhibited about it. And I think that's probably what made us all James included, approachable to one another and everyone that we met in Eureka Springs. That was part of the attraction. Back then, it was like 1997. And we were all, there was like a bohemian, kinship. And we were just treated so wonderfully in Eureka Springs. And it was sort of like a little magical gingerbread village to us. Like we showed up and we had the best time and we made a lot of friends that we are friends with to this day. And it was just for a couple of kids that didn't barely have gas money, we were like, it felt like the town rolled out the red carpet for us and we had such a rich time. And it's always going to be kind of like a treasured place on our roadmap for that reason. I think we just, you know, it was a special, natural kind of inspiring time.
That's magic of the road trip, is that you honor the detours, and and the world does open up to you, and it's so exciting, and the synchronicity, even having the stay with you, because in that box, not only did I find Donice's article, I found your letters to him.
Which that is so cute. That actually shows me something about myself that I like to see because I have forgotten that's my husband's first band. I've forgotten how, like, during the analog time before we had digital means to reach out to each other. And, we met James and everybody else in Eureka Springs before anybody had a phone with pictures on it or
Right.
whatever. And so we had to keep up with them. That was, if we wanted to maintain a friendship across space and time, we had to sort of put that effort in. And I am so proud to see that I wrote James letters and I wrote him from inspiring places that I went to.
Well, once
And
from Venice.
yeah, yeah. Well, he was at the time that I met him, I was a young artist that wanted guidance and mentorship. And so an encounter with somebody like James was hugely important to me because I went into a studio of an established artist that had a great deal of work all around him. He was proficient. He knew what he was about. He had his stories that he was telling, and he had those skills that I wanted to acquire. So to have somebody show you just a small amount of what they know is so powerful and so desired, and yeah, means so much for me. And at this time, I'm 46 and I have had like a handful of mentors and teachers, some of whom have been very gracious and others are a little more difficult to deal with. But only just a few people in my life that have really like dispensed their knowledge on me. So to have someone as warm and generous as James and who is so talented and knowledgeable, like, you know, take me under his wing just for that short visit and really like be open about his craft and his methods. That was so powerful, really. That was really such a great thing to get.
Can you tell me a little bit about your art?
I do portraits. And so James, I think like appealed to me right away because he had the talent that I wanted to pursue. I do portraits. I work as an illustrator now, and I do a lot of realism, but I do a lot of interpretations of illustration styles for my jobs. It's pretty much most of my clients are film and television projects. My husband and I lived in Hollywood for a decade and change, and both worked in the film industry, so as decorators. And so I acquired this niche with illustration where they reach out to me for sort of scripted narrative elements, like if there's a handbill that an actor has in a period film, or if there's a portrait of a actor playing a historical figure, and the likeness has to be like a historic painting with the likeness of this real person or whatever, then those are the kinds of jobs I'll get. And they're in terms of style and technical execution, they range wildly, and I do a lot of just like adapting. Um, but in my own pursuit, I don't paint as prolifically as James did. I have so many different hustles I'm always doing, and painting for myself is something that happens more infrequently. But I like to paint human beings, portraits from observation. I've studied with a few realist artists, and um, yeah, it's always been kind of the thing when I sketch in my sketchbook. It's mostly heads and faces, and that's just always been sort of the thing that I want to render. But yeah, that's I love to craft. Like I said, I was making chainmail. And so I'm just a maker. I like to make things. I like to fuss with different materials. I'll do any kind of fiber or paint or sculpting, or it's just it's what I would love to fill all of my time with. More recently, gardening is my
Yeah.
creative outlet. But yeah, I'll send you my website and you can look at some of the stuff I've done.
I would love that. And, you can please visit James's website because this will be posted, on that in the next week or so. But also, what we're leading to is the first year when James left the planet. It was, oh my gosh, I was thinking, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to get a job. And my really good friend, Bobby Bridger, who's an artist himself and historian and author and all that, he said, James is your job, And so it was forming a new website and foundation. No one had seen his paintings in over 16 years. The show happened. I am on the magical synchronistic shoot right now. And every day is just an absolute gift. And so the second year, this is the Legacy Project, where, it seems like I have an interview or a new discovery each week that we'll keep posting, and you can watch it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the hell, is out there. I have minions that help me with that. But, he was so proud of you, and I would love to add your website when we, put this up. But the third year, I'm an event producer, so I have visions. Like he did when he saw you. I love that faraway look in his eye. He saw that painting in that moment in time. The third year, I'm looking at a documentary called The Lost Artist of the Ozarks because,
That's great.
he's forgotten and he
Yeah.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, and so I want to ask, how many years did his painting career span?
Oh
Because
my
I know,
God. Well, what I
uh,
posted last week is the first thing I know about. It's called The Easter Rabbit. And it's the
okay.
first little book. His grandmother was his first teacher. And this is this little bunny book that I found in my Nancy Drewing. It's like by Jimmy Yale, age 5. And it's on the
Oh,
website and
I'll do
it's on
that.
Instagram and all that. And helping share this with people on your, network would help us so much because he is forgotten. I mean, he was active. He was an active artist his whole life, whether he was doing an advertising agency or you name it, or swinging a hammer to build things for Faye Jones's,
Yeah, I
studio.
recall when I went to his studio, I saw one of the paintings that you just recently posted, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but it has beautiful black woman with the puff afro, and
Oh,
she's like pointing in
yes,
cosmos, and a blonde child. That painting I recall very distinctly seeing in his um, studio, and of course I was struck by it because it's so funky and retro, and it's got such a vibe, a period vibe, which was just exciting to see on its own, but also for me, showed me how long he had been at it.
right.
At that time, I mean, I assume that that painting was from the 70s. Is that right? Do
I
you know what year that one was done?
I have it in my notes. It was probably late 70s, early 80s. That's Cherry Brooks. She was a blues singer, and he adored her, so, and she named it. It's the lesson, it's letting
Hmm.
people know that, you know, if we don't learn our lessons, we're going to keep doing this. And there's been other explorers to this planet before us. And, that's part of his cosmic realism that ties to a 22-year-old guy being privy to the moon landing. He has a little contraption on the moon.
Hmm.
So, that's was a big part of his life, So I love that painting. And Allison, who tracked you down, that was one of her favorite paintings of her father's.
That's a great painting. Such a great story and meaning and intention with the painting. And I think like it was probably painted right around the time I was born. So when I was born in 79. So when I saw that, I felt like, wow, he's been doing amazing paintings for the entirety of my life up until that point.
Yeah,
So
he
he,
painted it until about 2011 because what's extraordinary about James is that for 35 years he had multiple sclerosis. So you know how, as an artist yourself, that fine detail, that one shake and the whole day's worth of work is gone. But he persevered. And that, I think, is extraordinary. And also, he's self-taught, from his grandmother to nature, to like you, he was privy to go meet other amazing artists to, talk to them and expand his craft that way also. So, you know, with you, I think his wish is that you pay this forward to the next generation. And that's why I think it's really important that, we record the legacy of James Yale. And uh, also Angela, she's not just the artist, her husband's a documentarian. So this we shall make this happen.
yeah,
Uh,
good job.
yeah. So anyway, is there anything else? Are there any words or first impressions that you want to or talk to future generations about James?
I mean, I just think that he was such a giver, clearly. When he met me, he saw my interest and he was generous. He showed me what he could in the short time that we were together. He treated me with total respect as a model and a subject of his painting. And he kept in touch and sent me a picture of the finished work. And, it it made me a part of what he was doing, and I will treasure knowing James. I'm glad that we were able to keep in touch. I'm glad that he kept my letters. That means a lot to me. And when we talked, later in his life, occasionally he was always so sweet and so warm and just such a good guiding kind of mentoring person. And so um I am super appreciative. He definitely is a mile marker on my journey as an artist that I got to meet and interact with him at such an early stage in sort of my creative awakening, and that he saw me and showed me his work and talked about it with me, and that we kept up. It's meaningful, and I'm glad that you're doing this work because he was so prolific, and there's so many paintings that I've certainly never seen and look forward to seeing in the collection. And
Yeah, I exactly because there's thousands.
hmm.
And there's he said that most of his art is in Europe. So this Nancy Drew crew, that's why the more people we can share these stories that we uncover every week and then look to next year as the documentary is that it is about rediscovering, you know, giving
You'll
more
have to,
dimension to the art and the man as we tell these stories.
that's great. I wonder who bought the Princess in the Lake. I'm really
What,
excited for you
that's the
to,
question. That's the last question. It's like if you're out there, I would
yeah,
love to hear, I
I'll
want to
post it.
hear their stories.
Oh, that's, I'll go and look at the web, see all that you've done so far. It's work.
Okay, let's stay in touch.